In the unforgiving heartland, where fortunes are built on grit and destroyed by greed, a new legend is about to be told. It is a tale etched in the dust, whispered by the wind across sun-baked fields, of a quiet power awakened by an unthinkable injustice. Prepare yourselves, for there are truths that only reveal themselves when everything we know falls apart. The slap echoed, a percussive crack that seemed to silence the very wind whipping across the dry plains. Dust motes, caught in the afternoon sun, froze in midair, mirroring the stunned crowd that had gathered, drawn by the escalating tension like vultures to a carcass. Claire Maddox's face turned slowly, the crimson imprint of a hand blossoming on her pale cheek, a brutal flower of humiliation. Yet her eyes, a cool, deep hazel that usually held the warmth of summer light, now hardened to flint, betraying a calm that was far more unnerving than any outrage. He thought he was slapping a nobody, a common girl, another nameless face passing through his self-appointed kingdom. He had no idea who stood in front of him, no inkling that sometimes the worst moments of our lives are just the universe preparing us for who we're meant to become. The man, a hulking figure in a ranch security uniform, loomed over her, his chest puffed out like a bantam rooster, a sneer twisting his thick lips. He was Ray Collins, and in that moment in this dusty stretch of rural Redridge County, he felt like an undisputed king, the arbiter of all law and order, a law unto himself. He surveyed the uneasy crowd, his gaze daring any to challenge him, reveling in the silence his brutality had wrought. But Claire Maddox, outwardly just another middle-aged woman in simple work clothes, her hands calloused from honest labor, was already calculating. Her mind, usually occupied with the quiet rhythms of her modest farm and the tender care of her aging mother, was now a fortress of strategy. Behind eyes that held no tears, only a silent, burning promise, a reckoning was already being forged. The scent of dry earth and impending storm hung heavy in the air. Before the incident, the drive had been peaceful, almost serene, a familiar balm against the subtle anxieties that always hummed beneath the surface of rural life. Claire had eased her old Ford pickup truck, a vehicle whose every dent and scratch told a story of hard work and unpaved roads, along the winding ranch tracks. These were the veins of Redridge County, connecting its scattered homesteads, traversing landscapes that demanded respect and resilience. Beside her, her mother, a leaner, frail and beautiful even in her advanced years, dozed lightly, her head resting against the worn fabric of the seat. The rhythmic rumble of the tires over gravel and dirt was a gentle lullaby, a sound Claire had known since childhood, a symphony of their shared existence. The landscape outside was a familiar tapestry of golden fields, stretching to meet an endless cerulean sky. Wheat, still green, shimmered with promise under the late afternoon sun, punctuated by the occasional cluster of sturdy oaks that offered scant shade, and the distant gleam of irrigation ponds, vital oases in a thirsty land. Claire loved this land with a primal ferocity. It was in her blood, the scent of dry earth and sun-warmed sage, a constant presence that seeped into her skin, permeated her memory. This was more than just property. It was a legacy, a living history passed down through generations, each furrow in the field a testament to the sweat and dreams of her ancestors. Their small, inherited parcel was a century old, a stubborn bastion of independent spirit against the encroaching tide of corporate agriculture and the grasping hands of ambitious men like Collins. Its survival, fragile yet persistent, was her quiet, unspoken duty. Her life appeared humble, a deliberate choice. A quiet existence spent tending to her mother, managing their small farm, navigating the cycles of planting and harvest. She blended seamlessly into the backdrop of Redridge County, just like many others, seemingly insignificant. There was no hint in her worn denim and practical boots of the intricate web of influence and authority she quietly commanded, the strategic mind that lay beneath the unassuming exterior. No sign that she was the county land commissioner, a position she had held for a decade with quiet diligence, meticulously shaping zoning regulations, arbitrating complex land disputes, and crucially, overseeing the very ranch security contracts that men like Collins so arrogantly exploited. She was, in essence, the ultimate enforcement authority across this vast region, a silent architect of its hidden structures. But to most, she was simply Claire, driving her mother home after a routine doctor's appointment in the nearest small town, enjoying the fading light of the afternoon. Their conversation had been soft, about Eleanor's knitting, about the progress of the early summer crops on their modest plot, about the simple joys and enduring hardships of their farming life. No talk of county ordinances or multi-million-dollar land deals, just the hum of the engine and the comfortable silence of family. This was the deceptive calm before the storm, the ordinary surface masking the extraordinary depth. The checkpoint materialized without warning, a jarring disruption to the pastoral peace. It was a makeshift barricade, a crude arrangement of orange cones and a beat-up utility vehicle pulled across the narrow road, like a wolf trap sprung in a familiar path. Two burly figures in the familiar black and tan uniforms of the local ranch security force stood guard, their expressions grim, their posture radiating an aggressive, bored authority. Claire slowed the pickup, a flicker of unease stirring within her, not for herself, but for the principle of it. These checkpoints were becoming increasingly common, a growing cancer on the free spirit of the rural community, an aggressive display of power that had slowly tightened its grip over the past 2 years, subtly eroding trust and fostering resentment. Each one was a petty kingdom, and Ray Collins its self-anointed monarch. As she rolled to a stop, the larger of the two officers, Ray Collins himself, swaggered forward, a predator scenting weakness. His uniform, though stained with dust, was stretched taut across a powerful frame that spoke of brute force rather than disciplined strength. A heavy-caliber pistol rested menacingly on his hip, a clear statement of his perceived dominance. His eyes, cold and sharp, raked over Claire's truck, then over her, dismissing her with a glance, cataloging her as just another insignificant rural woman. "All right, lady, where you headed in such a hurry?" he drawled, his voice thick with condescension, a sneer already forming on his lips. It was a practiced performance, honed by years of unchallenged intimidation. Claire, accustomed to navigating such displays of petty power, the veiled threats and thinly disguised contempt, kept her tone even, her gaze steady. "Just heading home, officer. My mother isn't feeling well, we've just come from the doctor." She gestured subtly to Eleanor, who had woken with a start, her eyes wide with apprehension, her frail hand reaching instinctively for Claire's arm. The stress of confrontation was already etching new lines on her mother's delicate face. Ray ignored her, his gaze lingering with suspicious intent on the truck's bed, where a few empty feed sacks lay, stirring gently in the breeze. "Empty, huh? You wouldn't be trying to sneak anything out asterisk of county land, would you? Just a girl." The implication was clear, accusatory, and designed to humiliate. His breath, acrid with stale coffee and something fouler, wafted into the cab as he leaned in, invading her personal space. "We've had problems with folks like you, thinking they can just waltz through, taking what's not theirs." His words hung in the air, a poisonous miasma, conjuring images of theft, of illicit dealings. Claire's jaw tightened imperceptibly. He was making a show, playing to the small crowd of onlookers that had already gathered, drawn by the unusual stoppage and the rising tension. Locals, ranchers, small-town residents, their faces a mix of curiosity, weary familiarity with Collins's tactics, and a nervous awareness of the volatile situation. They knew Collins. They knew his reputation for bullying and corruption. He called her just a girl, a deliberate attempt to belittle, to assert his dominance over her perceived insignificance, a dismissive label he used to strip others of their dignity. The false accusation, baseless yet potent, hung in the air, a thinly veiled threat that often led to arbitrary fines, impounded vehicles, or worse. Eleanor stirred beside her, a soft whimper escaping her lips, her fear palpable. The oppressive weight of unchecked authority descended upon them. Claire, though her blood simmered, maintained a cool composure that belied the storm raging within. The public humiliation, the insult to her mother, the blatant abuse of power, each was a fresh cut. Yet she allowed no flicker of emotion to cross her face, no tremor to enter her voice. "Officer Collins," she stated, using his name, a subtle challenge in itself, an assertion of recognition that stripped away his anonymous authority. "There's nothing in my truck but my mother and a few empty sacks. We've done nothing wrong. May I ask what exactly you're searching for, and under what specific authority are you detaining us?" Her voice was calm, clear, cutting through the bluster and the manufactured drama. It was not a plea but a demand for reason, a quiet assertion of rights that only inflamed Ray's already volatile ego. She saw the flash of surprise, then rage in his eyes. He recoiled slightly, taken aback by her directness. No cowering, no stammering, no immediate submission. This wasn't the reaction he expected from just another nobody. His face, already flushed with exertion and self-importance, darkened further, a dangerous flush spreading across his neck. "Authority," he scoffed, his voice rising, a guttural growl that punctuated his words. "I am the authority out here, lady. You want to question me. You want to play games." He slammed his palm against the side of the truck with a sickening thud, a metallic clang that made Alina jump and cry out softly, her small frame trembling uncontrollably. "You think you're special, huh? Think you can talk back to a man in uniform?" His gaze swept the crowd, demanding their complicity, asserting his absolute control. The crowd, a silent jury, shifted uneasily. Some averted their eyes, feigning disinterest, hoping to disappear. Others, braver or simply more accustomed to the digital age, pulled out their phones, their tiny lenses already capturing the scene. It was a collective, almost instinctual understanding of what was about to unfold. Ray's rage, unchecked and fueled by her defiance, had reached its boiling point. It exploded. He grabbed Claire's arm with a vise-like grip, yanking her out of the driver's seat. She stumbled, her worn boots kicking up a small cloud of dust, but regained her balance with an athletic grace born of years working the land. Her gaze, unwavering, met his furious, bloodshot eyes. "I'm asking for a legal reason for this detention," she said again, her voice now a low, dangerous whisper, a silken threat. That was the final line. Her calm, her unyielding demand for accountability was an affront he could not tolerate. It stripped him of his illusion of control, exposed his flimsy pretexts. His hand shot out, open-palmed, and connected with her cheek with a brutal, sickening force. The crack of the slap ripped through the stillness, echoing across the plains, a sound that seemed to reverberate in the very bones of the witnesses. The audience's outrage spiked, a collective gasp, a few mumbled exclamations, but no one dared to intervene. The slap was more than physical assault. It was a public humiliation, a stark demonstration of unchecked power, a violation of the fragile peace of Redridge County. And in that moment, something within Claire Maddox, something deep and elemental, fractured and then reforged. Claire did not fall. The force of the blow rocked her head, a sharp, searing pain blossoming across her cheek and ear, spreading like wildfire down her neck. For a split second, the world tilted, the golden fields blurring into an indistinct smear of yellow and green. A metallic tang filled her mouth, the coppery taste of defiance. But she did not retaliate. She did not raise a hand, did not scream, did not even flinch after the initial impact, her body a testament to years of quiet fortitude. Instead, she stood perfectly still, a silent sentinel, her head slowly turning back to face Ray Collins, her gaze now a steel trap. Her eyes, usually so warm and observant, were cold, empty of fear, yet burning with an intensity that promised a reckoning, a payment for every ounce of pain and humiliation. She said nothing. She did not explain who she was, did not threaten, did not reveal even a fraction of the immense, systemic power she held. Her silence was not submission. It was a strategy, a calculated choice that spoke volumes without uttering a single word. It was a silent, terrifying vow. She only watched him, her eyes locking onto his, dissecting his arrogance, his cruelty, taking in every detail of his self-satisfied smirk, memorizing the contempt in his gaze. She would remember this every second. The air crackled with a tension far thicker than the dust. Around them, a dozen phones were raised, their tiny lenses capturing every agonizing, infuriating second. The slap, her stoic reaction, the officer's continued swagger, all of it was being meticulously recorded, a digital testament to the unfolding injustice. Claire knew this. She counted on it. In the contemporary world, evidence was power, and Collins, in his hubris, was providing it in abundance. The pain in her cheek was real, a throbbing pulse that spread down her neck, but the sting was overshadowed by a far colder, sharper clarity. This wasn't just about her. It was about all the nameless nobodies Ray Collins and those like him had abused, humiliated, and broken across Redridge County. She was just another body, another victim in his eyes, but she was also the silent authority, the unseen architect. And now, the system, which had been bent and corrupted by men like him, would finally feel her full, unyielding weight. "You think you're tough, huh?" Ray sneered, utterly oblivious to the silent storm brewing behind Claire's eyes, to the abyss of his own making that yawned before him. "Well, let's see how tough you are in a holding cell." He shoved her roughly towards his patrol vehicle, a battered SUV with darkened windows that seemed to swallow light. Alina cried out again, her voice thin and reedy, laced with fear. "Mama, let her go, please." Claire ignored the pain, ignored Ray, her focus entirely on her mother, the fragile woman who represented everything she was fighting for. "It's all right, Mama. We'll be fine," she murmured, her voice a low reassurance, struggling to project a calm she hardly felt. But Alina's frail body was trembling, her face ashen, her breathing shallow and ragged. The ordeal was taking a visible toll. The second officer, a younger man named Davis, visibly uncomfortable but unwilling to cross Collins, simply watched, his gaze fixed on the dust at his feet, as Ray forced Claire into the cramped, stale back seat, then slammed the door with a final, echoing thud. Alina was made to sit beside her, her small frame dwarfed by the confined space, the world outside reduced to a blur of passing fields. The air inside the vehicle was stale, smelling faintly of sweat, cheap disinfectant, and the lingering odor of fear. The journey to the Redridge County Ranch Security Station, a grim, nondescript building on the outskirts of town, was mercifully short, but the indignity stretched into an endless night. They were led into a stark, cinder-block room, a holding cell indistinguishable from 100 others across the state. The air was heavy, damp with an undefinable stench, a cocktail of stale desperation and disinfectant. The fluorescent lights hummed with a sickly yellow glow, casting harsh shadows that distorted familiar features into something menacing, stripping the world of color and hope. Ray Collins, still brimming with an irritating, unearned triumph, barked orders at a younger officer at the booking desk. "Book 'em, obstruction, resisting arrest, disorderly conduct, and don't forget the attitude charge." He punctuated his words with a dismissive wave of his hand, as if swatting away an annoying fly. Claire stood silently, her hands clasped loosely in front of her, observing the performance with a detached, chilling clarity. Her cheek throbbed, a dull, insistent ache that was a constant reminder of the injustice. But her focus was increasingly on Alina. Her mother's breathing became shallow, a soft wheeze escaping her lips, her eyes darting nervously around the cold, unforgiving room. The stress of the incident, the rough handling, the unfamiliar, intimidating surroundings were taking their toll on Alina's fragile health. Claire asked for water, for a blanket, for a moment of quiet for her mother. Her requests were met with dismissive shrugs or outright hostility from the booking officer, whose eyes carefully avoided Collins's gaze. "They'll get what they get," Ray had said, passing by their cell later, a cruel smile on his face, a predatory gleam in his eye. He watched them for a moment, savoring their discomfort before sauntering away, his heavy boots echoing in the corridor. Claire gently settled Elena onto the narrow, uncomfortable cot, its thin mattress offering little comfort against the cold steel frame. She pulled her mother close, murmuring comforting words into her hair, shielding her from the harsh reality of their confinement. The cold seeped into their bones, the metallic tang of the jail cell clinging to their clothes like a shroud. Claire endured it all, the humiliation, the discomfort, the gnawing fear for her mother, with a stoic resolve that astonished even herself. She closed her eyes, not in sleep, but in a deeper, more profound contemplation. This quiet suffering, this crucible of injustice, was hardening her will, sharpening her purpose. The emotional core of the reference, the pain point, was now a white-hot forge within her. She felt the weight of her responsibilities as county land commissioner, a role she had always treated with quiet diligence, now burn with a fierce, personal conviction. This wasn't just a political position. It was a sacred trust, a shield for the vulnerable, for the countless families who toiled on this land. And tonight, that shield had been momentarily dropped, leaving her and her mother exposed. The thought of all the other innocents who had suffered under Collins's thumb, without the hidden power she possessed, filled her with a righteous, controlled fury. She felt the cold concrete beneath her fingers, the stale air in her lungs, and she knew with absolute certainty that Ray Collins had made the gravest mistake of his life. He had underestimated the quiet woman, the invisible architect. There are truths that only reveal themselves when everything we know falls apart. And in that cold cell, illuminated by the sickly yellow glow, Claire Maddox saw the unvarnished truth of the system she served. A system that, left unchecked, could become an instrument of terror rather than justice. Her radical decision, born of pain and burning conviction, was already crystallizing. The world outside the Redridge County Ranch security station didn't sleep. As Claire and Elena shivered in their cell, utterly unaware of the digital maelstrom, the universe of social media was already ablaze. The blurry, handheld footage of the roadside incident, captured by multiple phones and uploaded within minutes, had gone viral with astonishing speed. The slap, raw and brutal, was the focal point, replayed endlessly, analyzed frame by agonizing frame. The sight of Ray Collins, puffed with self-importance, striking a seemingly defenseless woman, sparked a firestorm of outrage that swept across the internet. Comments flooded social media platforms, each one a fresh torrent of indignation. Who is this monster? Disgrace to law enforcement. That poor woman just standing there. Redridge County, explain yourselves. The outrage spiked with every share, every view, every trending hashtag. By dawn, the local news channels, initially hesitant to report on local law enforcement, were forced to cover the burgeoning scandal. The story jumped to regional, then national feeds, an undeniable crisis erupting from a dusty roadside. Screenshots of Ray Collins's smirking face were plastered across screens, his identity quickly unearthed by online sleuths, his past a rapidly unraveling tapestry of complaints and abuses. But the identity of the woman he had struck remained a mystery. Her quiet dignity, her stoic refusal to engage, her unwavering gaze, amplified the emotional impact, transforming her into a symbol of all who had suffered silently. She didn't fight back, one commentator observed, their voice heavy with awe, just looked at him like he was already dead. Officials, from the county sheriff's office to the state attorney general's department, began to react, initially with cautious, vague statements about investigating the matter fully, attempting to contain the escalating crisis. But the pressure mounted with every passing hour. Phone lines at the ranch security office jammed, overwhelmed by calls from concerned citizens, advocacy groups, and even other law enforcement agencies. Emails from across the country poured in, demanding answers, demanding justice. Names began surfacing, not just of Ray Collins, but of past complaints against him, whispers of extortion, intimidation, and abuse of power that had been swept under the rug for too long, finally seeing the light of day. The video wasn't just a moment of injustice. It was a cracking open of a festering wound, exposing the deep-seated corruption that permeated the county. The silent woman, an unknown catalyst, had ignited a reckoning, and Redridge County, its power structures suddenly laid bare, braced for the inevitable tremors. Inside the station, blissfully unaware of the inferno raging outside, Ray Collins was riding high on his perceived victory. The night had been a triumph of his will, another notch on his belt of unchallenged authority. He sauntered into the break room, a greasy smile on his face, grabbing a stale donut and a cup of lukewarm coffee from the perpetually stained machine. "Looks like we had a busy night," a younger officer ventured, looking nervously at the buzzing activity in the main office, the hushed phone calls and frantic email exchanges. Ray merely scoffed, dismissing the subordinate's apprehension with a wave of his hand. "Just keeping the peace. Some folks need to learn who's boss." He laughed, a short, barking sound that grated on the nerves, confident in his impunity. He'd seen the early reports, a few local rants online, but dismissed them as the usual noise, the bleeding hearts and activists who always crawled out of the woodwork. A bunch of bleeding hearts with nothing better to do. This will all blow over by lunch. Always does. He genuinely believed nothing would happen. He'd been pulling stunts like this for years, bending the rules, intimidating the vulnerable, and always, always, getting away with it. He was untouchable, or so he thought. He had powerful friends, connections in the county government, influential ranchers who owed him favors, local politicians whose campaigns he'd subtly supported. He'd made sure of it, carefully cultivating a network of complicity and mutual benefit. His control over ranch security contracts, his iron grip on the flow of goods and people across the vast stretches of private land, gave him a sense of invincibility, a divine right to rule. He saw himself as the linchpin, the true power behind the scenes, necessary and unassailable. He mocked the situation, gloated about the attitude of the woman he'd slapped, told her she's just a girl. She learned her place real quick. He chuckled again, a self-satisfied tremor that echoed his supreme arrogance, his eyes gleaming with a dark, twisted pleasure at the memory. He pictured her, still stewing in the cell, finally understanding the futility of defiance, the absolute power he wielded. The thought filled him with a visceral satisfaction, a confirmation of his dominance. He finished his donut, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand, and straightened his uniform with a flourish. Time to face the day, to continue his reign. He had no idea the foundations of his world were already crumbling beneath his feet. The ground was softening, the earth shifting, preparing to swallow him whole. His hubris was a gaping maw, about to consume him entirely. The morning light, filtered through the grimy, barred windows of the holding cell, seemed to mock their confinement, casting long, distorted shadows. Eleanor had finally drifted into a fitful sleep, her breath still catching occasionally, her small hand clutching Claire's. Claire watched her, a fierce love warring with the cold, strategic precision that now dominated her mind. The decision had been made in the darkest hours of the night, while the rest of the world slept or raged online. She would not simply seek justice, she would embody it. She would dismantle the apparatus of fear Ray Collins had built, piece by agonizing piece, exposing the rot beneath the surface. Her private pain had transformed into public purpose, her personal humiliation into a burning resolve for systemic change. She waited, listening to the muffled sounds of the station coming to life, the distant ringing of phones, the hushed, urgent voices that suggested a shift from routine to crisis. The heavy steel door of their cell creaked open, shattering the fragile quiet. A young, nervous officer, his face pale and etched with discomfort, gestured for them to follow. They want to see you." He wouldn't meet her eyes, his gaze flickering from Claire to Eleanor, then quickly away. Claire guided her mother, supporting her frail frame, her own face an impassive mask. They were led down a corridor, not to booking but to a larger, more official-looking office. The door was ajar, a sliver of the internal power structure revealed. Through the gap, Claire saw a gathering of suits, stern faces, and uneasy postures. County Sheriff Henderson, Chief Miller of Ranch Security, even a tightly buttoned representative from the state attorney's office, Mr. Davies. Their expressions were tight, strained, reflecting a night of frantic damage control, a desperate attempt to shore up crumbling defenses. As Claire stepped into the room supporting a leaner, the conversations abruptly ceased. All eyes, heavy with apprehension, turned to her. The sheriff, Henderson, a man whose face was usually ruddy and jovial, cleared his throat, his gaze sweeping over her slightly bruised cheek, then quickly away, unable to meet her steady gaze. "Miss, we apologize for the inconvenience. There's been a mistake." His words were hollow, lacking any genuine remorse, merely a rote recitation of damage control. Claire simply stood, her posture erect, her gaze calm, her silence amplifying the discomfort in the room. She allowed the silence to stretch, twisting the knife of their unease. Then she took a deep breath, and in a voice that commanded immediate, absolute attention, a voice now honed to a steely edge, she spoke. "There has indeed been a mistake, Sheriff Henderson. A grave one." She looked directly at Ray Collins, who stood by the far wall, his face now stripped of its arrogance, replaced by a growing unease as he saw the somber assembly, the tightly wound expressions of his powerful friends. His jaw worked, a flicker of fear finally dawning in his eyes, a dawning realization that this was not the usual blow over by lunch scenario. Claire stepped forward, away from her mother, into the center of the room, claiming the space. Her plain clothes, her bruised face, her quiet demeanor had shielded her identity, making her invisible, an easy target. Now she chose to become undeniably visible. She met the eyes of each official, one by one, allowing her gaze to penetrate their guarded expressions. Her voice, though still calm, resonated with an undeniable power, a quiet storm breaking. "My name," she stated, her words dropping like stones into a silent well, reverberating through the room, "is Claire Maddox." A stunned silence descended. Ray Collins's eyes went wide, his mouth opening slightly, a soundless gasp escaping his lips. The sheriff's face went white, the blood draining from his features. The chief of security actually sagged against the wall, as if physically struck, his carefully constructed composure shattering. Claire continued, her voice gaining a steely edge, no longer merely stating facts but issuing a decree. "I am the county land commissioner, and as of this morning, I am initiating a full, comprehensive review of all ranch security contracts, personnel, and enforcement protocols across Redridge County. Every single one." Ray Collins's world, built on intimidation and impunity on the quiet complicity of powerful men, collapsed in that instant. His face, usually so ruddy with self-importance, drained of all color, leaving him looking sickly, horrified, a spectral figure stripped of his lifeblood. The name Claire Maddox had not just been revealed, it had been detonated, a silent bomb that had just ripped through the core of his existence, shattering his illusion of invincibility. He stared at her, the common girl he had slapped, the woman he had humiliated, and in her steady, unwavering gaze, he saw not just his downfall, but the end of everything he believed himself to be. The symmetrical catharsis, though subtle, had begun. The room remained in a frozen tableau, the weight of Claire Maddox's identity hanging heavy in the stale air, a palpable dread settling over the assembled officials. Ray Collins stared aghast, his mouth agape, utterly speechless, his face a mask of dawning horror. The sheriff, Henderson, was the first to regain his composure, though his face remained a sickly shade of green, his usual authority evaporated. "Commissioner Maddox," he stammered, his voice barely a whisper, a desperate plea for understanding, I am profoundly sorry. This is an outrage, a terrible misunderstanding." He didn't dare meet her eyes, his gaze fixed on a spot just over her shoulder. Claire didn't acknowledge his apology, not yet. Her gaze remained fixed on Ray, a silent, unwavering judgment. "Officer Collins," she said, her voice devoid of emotion, yet carrying the cutting edge of a honed blade, each word precise and deliberate. "You were so quick to assert your authority last night. Tell me, what authority do you believe you hold now?" Ray tried to speak, but only a choked, pathetic sound emerged, a gurgle of despair. He looked like a cornered animal, his bravado utterly evaporated, replaced by a desperate, palpable fear that seeped from his every pore. His eyes darted around the room, seeking an ally, a friendly face, but found only averted gazes and grim disapproval. Two state police officers, who had been standing discreetly by the door, their presence unnoticed until now, moved forward at a silent signal from their superior, Mr. Davies of the state attorney's office. "Ray Collins," one of them said, his voice curt and official, cutting through the heavy silence. "You are under arrest for assault, battery, abuse of authority, and multiple violations of civil rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can, and will be used against you in a court of law." The words were a death knell for Ray's career, his freedom, his entire corrupted world. He stood there, trembling uncontrollably, as the handcuffs were snapped around his wrists, the metallic click echoing loudly in the sudden, cavernous silence of the office, sealing his fate. Stripped of his uniform, stripped of his sidearm, stripped of his illusion of power and his carefully constructed network of impunity, he was a pathetic sight, reduced to nothing more than a common criminal. His eyes darted to Claire, a desperate, pleading look, but she simply watched him, her expression unreadable, a silent sentinel of justice. The humiliation was complete, public, and inescapable. He was led away, his footsteps dragging, a defeated echo in the corridor. With Collins led away, the true work began. Claire turned to the assembled officials, her gaze sweeping over them, demanding their full attention. Her voice, though calm, held an unwavering authority that demanded absolute compliance, an unshakable resolve. Sheriff Henderson, Chief Miller, Mr. Davies from the Attorney General's office. This is not merely about Ray Collins, a single rogue officer. This is about a systemic failure. The unchecked power, the intimidation, the fear he instilled, the corruption he fostered. This has been allowed to fester under our collective watch. And as County Land Commissioner, I bear a significant responsibility for that oversight. But that oversight ends today. Her words were not accusations but declarations, statements of fact that painted a grim picture of their complicity. She outlined her plan, her words precise and measured, each one a hammer blow to the old, corrupt structures. Effective immediately, all ranch security contracts will be frozen. A full audit of personnel, performance, and complaint histories will be initiated. We will establish clear, robust channels for public complaints, ensuring that citizens can report abuses without fear of retaliation, a fear that has crippled our community for too long. Every checkpoint, every patrol route, every interaction will be subject to new, stricter oversight protocols. Policies will be rewritten to prioritize community engagement, de-escalation, and genuine protection, not intimidation or arbitrary enforcement. And any officer found to have abused their position will face immediate and severe consequences. No exceptions, no more looking the other way. The officials listened, their faces grim, their shoulders slumped. They knew she wasn't just talking. She was enacting change, a seismic shift in the balance of power, a complete overhaul of the county's security infrastructure. This was not a punitive measure but a foundational rebuilding, a promise of a new era. This was justice, not just for herself and her mother, but for every nobody who had suffered in silence, whose voices had been suppressed. Eleanor, now resting in a comfortable chair, a warm blanket draped over her, watched her daughter with a quiet pride, a knowing glint in her eyes. The old matriarch recognized the steel in her daughter's soul, the echo of generations of Maddox strength. Claire concluded, her gaze sweeping across the room, encompassing every person, every office, every corner of Redridge County that would be affected by these changes. her vision extending far beyond the confines of this room. Her voice was firm, resonating with a quiet power that stemmed from profound conviction, from a deep understanding of her duty. Authority without humanity is just violence in uniform. We will ensure that the authority granted to protect our lands and our people is wielded with responsibility, integrity, and compassion. No longer will our community live in fear of those sworn to protect it. It was a declaration, a promise, and a stark warning. The system, once broken, was now in the hands of someone who understood its immense power and its profound potential for good. The path ahead was arduous, fraught with unseen dangers, but Claire Maddox stood ready, her resolve unshakable. This was only the beginning of her journey from humiliation to ultimate empowerment. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity, a relentless storm of reform orchestrated by Claire Maddox. The sheer scale of the undertaking would have broken a lesser person, but Claire found a new wellspring of energy, fueled by the memory of the slap, the image of her mother's frightened face, and the quiet suffering of her community. She worked tirelessly, her mornings starting before dawn, her nights ending long after the county lights had dimmed, fueled by strong coffee and an unyielding purpose. The ranch security office, once a bastion of Ray Collins's arrogant rule and veiled corruption, became a hive of transparent activity, a bureaucratic battlefield where Claire, armed with legal documents and irrefutable facts, systematically dismantled the old order. New faces, vetted not just for competence but for integrity and a genuine community focus, were brought in to oversee operations. Claire personally reviewed thousands of pages of contracts, each document a labyrinth of opaque clauses, inflated costs, and hidden kickbacks that had allowed corruption to thrive for years. She identified areas where contractors had been overpaid by millions, where services were substandard, and where security had become a euphemism for private muscle, used to intimidate smaller ranchers and suppress dissent. Each discovery was a nail in the coffin of the old regime and a building block for the new. She was meticulous, unyielding, and absolutely fair, ensuring that every decision was defensible, every reform anchored in law and ethics. Her decisions were not driven by personal revenge, though the memory of her bruised cheek still throbbed, but by a deep-seated commitment to justice and the efficient, ethical management of county resources. She was rebuilding, not just punishing. The public, initially stunned by the reveal of their seemingly humble commissioner, watched in awe as the quiet woman they knew unleashed a hurricane of change. The viral video, once a symbol of outrage, became a testament to Claire's quiet power, her unwavering resolve. Every new policy, every disciplinary action, every rewritten contract was reported by the local news, amplifying the message. Redridge County was changing irrevocably. For the first time in memory, ranchers felt like their concerns were heard, not dismissed. Farmers found fair resolution to disputes with security patrols, rather than facing threats and intimidation. The morale within the honest ranks of law enforcement, long suppressed by Collins's shadow, began to lift, a breath of fresh air after years of stagnation. This was Crisis 1, the immediate aftermath, a brutal battle against entrenched bureaucracy and the inertial resistance of a system that preferred the familiar, even if it was broken. Claire met every challenge head-on, her mind sharp, her resolve unshakable. She faced pushback from old guard officials who had benefited from the lax oversight, from powerful landowners who had enjoyed Collins's preferential treatment. They tried to delay, to obscure, to discredit her. But Claire, with the undeniable weight of public opinion and legal precedent on her side, systematically dismantled their arguments, one by one. She brought in legal teams, forensic accountants, and independent oversight committees. The sheer scale of the corruption she uncovered was staggering, reinforcing her conviction that this systemic overhaul was not just necessary, but long overdue. Each victory, however small, fueled her determination, a quiet, internal celebration of progress. The cold pain in her cheek had faded, leaving only a faint discoloration, but the memory of the slap remained, a constant, low thrum beneath her skin, reminding her of the stakes. This was bigger than her. This was about the soul of Redridge County, about securing its future against the shadows of its past. The financial chains, once binding the county to corruption, were slowly being broken. The pressure mounted in a different, more insidious way. While the public cheered her reforms, the old powers, though temporarily stunned and forced into retreat, began to regroup. This was Crisis 2, a battle waged in the shadows, a more subtle yet equally dangerous attack. Whispers started circulating through the county, like a dry wind carrying seeds of doubt. Rumors of Claire being too aggressive, overreaching, disrupting vital services, threatening the very fabric of their traditional society. Old cronies of Ray Collins, still holding positions in various county departments, began to drag their feet, obstructing paperwork, delaying approvals for her new initiatives, trying to create chaos in the name of stability. They exploited every procedural loophole, every bureaucratic delay. A small but vocal faction began publishing anonymous op-eds in regional papers, questioning her leadership, portraying her as an authoritarian figure consolidating power, threatening the freedom of ranchers and businesses. These attacks, designed to undermine her authority through attrition, to wear her down, were a slow poison, more difficult to combat than outright opposition. Claire felt the loneliness of leadership acutely during these weeks. The phone calls that used to flow freely now sometimes met silence. Old colleagues, once friendly, now eyed her with caution or thinly veiled resentment, wary of being associated with her controversial reforms. She found herself working in an environment where trust was a precious, often absent, commodity, suspicion lingering in every interaction. Eleanor, despite her fragility, was a rock, a steady anchor in the storm. Her mother, recovering from the ordeal, understood the immense burden Claire carried, the personal cost of her crusade. In the quiet evenings at home, over cups of chamomile tea, Eleanor would listen, offering not advice, but simply her presence, her unwavering support, her hand gently stroking Claire's hair. "You're doing what's right, sweetheart," she would say, her voice soft but firm. "Don't let them make you doubt that. This land, our farm, it survived for 100 years because we fought for it. You're fighting for all of Redridge now." These moments were Claire's reflective pause one, vital periods of solace and internal recalibration. They reminded her why she had chosen this path, why she had dedicated her life to public service. It wasn't for glory or personal power, but to protect the very fabric of their rural community, to ensure that decency and fairness prevailed, that the legacy of their land was preserved. She thought of the sun-baked fields, the cattle grazing peacefully, the quiet dignity of the people who worked it. That was what she was fighting for. Her resolve, far from weakening, solidified further. She recognized the tactics for what they were: desperate attempts by those who had lost their grip to claw their way back, to maintain their corrupt hold. She would not be moved. She would respond not with anger or retaliation, but with relentless, transparent efficiency, turning their every obstruction into an opportunity to expose their lingering flaws. The stakes of the family legacy and financial chains became clearer, intertwined with the fate of the entire county. The struggle then escalated into Crisis 3, a battle for hearts and minds within the wider community itself. The old money ranching families, whose ancestral lands encompassed vast swathes of Redridge County, saw Claire's reforms not as progress, but as an encroachment on their traditional prerogatives, a threat to a way of life they had known for generations. They were the social gatekeepers, their influence deep-rooted and pervasive. They began to publicly criticize her, implying that her sudden, radical reforms were jeopardizing the county's agricultural economy, the very engine of their prosperity. Commissioner Maddox is inexperienced in real ranch management. One prominent rancher, Silas Thorne, declared at a contentious county council meeting, his words carefully chosen to sow doubt and division. Her changes threaten the stability of our local economy. They're driving good men out, creating uncertainty where there was once order. These accusations cut deep, resonating with a segment of the population wary of change. Claire, a lifelong resident, understood the delicate balance of power and legacy in a rural community, the profound weight of tradition. She knew that winning the hearts of these influential families, or at least neutralizing their opposition, was crucial. This wasn't about contracts anymore. It was about trust, about tradition, about identity. It was a social battle, a fight for cultural legitimacy. Her internal thoughts churned. How could she demonstrate that her reforms were not destructive, but transformative? How could she prove that a more ethical, transparent security system would ultimately benefit everyone, even those who currently felt threatened, those who saw her as an outsider shaking the foundations? The county's future and her family's farm depended on her success in this intangible, yet vital conflict. The weight of her legacy, the generations of Maddox farmers who had nurtured this land, pressed upon her. Crucially, she ensured that every dollar saved from the cancellation of the old, corrupt contracts was reinvested directly into the cooperative. This meant state-of-the-art surveillance technology, including drone patrols that could cover vast areas more efficiently and without intrusive checkpoints, better equipment for the officers, and significantly higher wages and benefits for the cooperative's personnel, attracting a higher caliber of dedicated individuals. The difference was almost immediate and quantifiable, a stark contrast to the old ways. Crop theft, once rampant, plummeted. Incidents of vandalism and livestock rustling decreased dramatically. More importantly, the relationship between the landowners and the security personnel transformed. Officers, now accountable to the cooperative's board, which included elected local ranchers, became trusted partners. They helped track stray cattle, assisted with minor equipment repairs, provided crucial support during small brush fires, and even offered advice on land management and wildlife protection. These were tasks far beyond the scope and indeed the interest of the old security firm. Word of mouth spread like wildfire, a positive contagion. Ranchers, initially skeptical, began to see the tangible benefits. Their operational costs decreased significantly due to reduced losses, and their sense of security and community ownership soared. The cooperative's financial transparency, detailing every expenditure and saving, stood in stark contrast to the shadowy dealings of the past. This was the quantifiable escalation, the undeniable proof that her secret model worked, not just in theory, but in practice, delivering tangible prosperity and peace of mind. The cooperative, initially a vulnerability due to its novelty and the resistance it faced, quickly became her greatest strength. It was financially sound, ethically robust, and deeply rooted in the very community it served, a living testament to her vision. The old money families, seeing the undeniable success and the groundswell of support from smaller and medium-sized ranchers, found their criticisms weakening, their arguments crumbling into dust. Many, once staunch opponents, quietly applied to join the cooperative, recognizing the inevitable tide of progress. Claire hadn't just changed the system. She had built a better one from the ground up, out of the ashes of corruption, transforming Redridge County into a model for others. Her authority, once hidden, was now visibly, demonstrably, triumphantly exercised, not through force, but through principled innovation and transparent leadership. The wind now carried not whispers of doubt, but the steady hum of a working system, a testament to her quiet, formidable will, forever linking her name to the renewed prosperity of the land. The grand jury indictment of Ray Collins for multiple counts of assault, abuse of power, extortion, and systemic corruption finally came down, a public declaration that validated Claire's relentless efforts and the deep, festering wounds he had inflicted upon the community. He was held without bail, his once powerful connections proving utterly useless against the mountain of evidence Claire had meticulously compiled and presented. His network of complicity evaporated under the spotlight of public scrutiny, his friends scattering like roaches. The trial was swift, a stark and undeniable symmetrical catharsis for the county. The viral video of the slap, once a source of collective outrage, was played repeatedly, an infuriating loop that now served as irrefutable proof of his depravity and Claire's unyielding resilience. Witness after witness came forward, emboldened by Claire's reforms and the promise of protection from retaliation, detailing years of intimidation, extortion, and petty tyranny at Collins's hands. Farmers recounted stolen livestock and crops. Small business owners spoke of protection rackets. Local residents detailed arbitrary fines and public humiliations. Ray Collins, once the swaggering king of his checkpoint, sat in the defendant's chair, a shrunken, broken, defeated man, his face gaunt and pale, stripped of every shred of his former arrogance. He was convicted on all major counts, sentenced to a significant prison term, far longer than any his connections could have averted, stripped of his pension, and forever banned from any position of authority. His personal assets, painstakingly traced and obtained through years of illicit activity and carefully disguised bribes, were seized by the county as restitution for his countless victims, a poetic financial justice that left him destitute. The verdict sent a powerful message reverberating throughout Redridge County and beyond. No one, regardless of their perceived connections or self-appointed power, was above the law, especially when that power was abused. The system, once corrupted, had been purged and reasserted its integrity, thanks to Claire Maddox. The mandatory epilogue scene arrived 3 months after Ray Collins's conviction, a cold, gray day outside the Redridge County courthouse. The sky, a bruised pewter, mirrored the somber, yet resolute, mood of the county. Claire Maddox, no longer wearing the simple clothes of a common girl, but a tailored, professional suit that spoke of her renewed and amplified authority, stood on the courthouse steps. Her posture was erect, her gaze calm, her presence radiating a quiet strength that had become legendary. She had just finished addressing a press conference, her voice clear and resonant, announcing the successful expansion of the Redridge Regional Safety and Land Stewardship Cooperative across the entire county, citing its unprecedented success in crime reduction, increased agricultural productivity, and the profound restoration of community trust. It was a triumph, not just for her, but for every farmer, every rancher, every citizen who had suffered under the old regime. The relentless attacks, the whispers of betrayal, and the growing social ostracism began to gnaw at Claire's extraordinary resilience. The fight against bureaucratic inertia was one thing. Battling the deeply entrenched social fabric of the county was another. Even as the cooperative began to show promise in isolated pilot areas, the collective skepticism of the old money families acted like a dense fog, obscuring her vision from the wider populace. She faced lonely evenings, poring over budget projections, legal documents, and community engagement plans, feeling the immense burden of expectation and the sting of isolation. Many local businesses, cautious of alienating the powerful ranching families, quietly distanced themselves from her initiatives. There were moments of genuine doubt, a chill wind of uncertainty that swept through her resolve. Had she pushed too hard, too fast? Was she truly alienating the very people she sought to protect? One particularly desolate evening, after a county meeting where Silas Thorne had subtly questioned her family's own financial stability, suggesting her reforms were a desperate attempt to shore up her own dwindling resources, Claire returned home utterly drained. The accusation, a cruel twisting of her genuine motivations, had struck a nerve. Eleanor found her sitting alone on the porch, staring out at the darkening fields of their ancestral farm, the very land Thorne had hinted was failing. The scent of dry earth, usually a comfort, now felt heavy with the weight of generations of struggle. Eleanor, her voice soft but firm, settled beside her daughter. "Silas Thorne is an old snake, dear. He twists the truth to suit his own ends. Don't let his words poison your purpose. She reached out, taking Claire's hand, her touch surprisingly strong. Our farm has seen droughts, floods, depressions. We've fought tooth and nail for this land, just like your great-grandfather fought to keep it during the Dust Bowl. The Maddox name is written into this soil, not with ink, but with generations of sweat and unwavering belief. It's not just dirt and crops, Claire. It's our story. It's a perpetual hook binding us to this place, to each other, and to the community we've always been a part of. Claire looked at her mother, seeing not just a frail woman, but the embodiment of the legacy she fought for. The farm, 100 years old, was more than property. It was a symbol of resilience, of enduring against all odds. Her own financial situation, while stable, was constantly threatened by the broader economic currents of the agricultural world, a perpetual challenge that mirrored the county's struggles. Alina continued, her eyes distant, remembering her own youth. Your father, he always said the strongest fences aren't made of wire but of trust, and the best leaders, they don't just tell people what to do, they show them what's possible. This quiet wisdom, drawn from a lifetime of facing hardship on the land, served as Claire's reflective pause too. It was a moment of profound introspection, reconnecting her to the deep roots of her purpose, reminding her of the values that truly mattered. She realized that she wasn't just fighting Collins or Thorne or corrupt contracts. She was fighting for the enduring spirit of Redridge, for the promise of a future where trust, not fear, bound its people together. Her family's legacy was not a burden, but a shield, a constant reminder of the strength she carried within her, a perpetual hook to her resolve. The answers, she knew, lay not in rhetoric, but in action, in demonstrating a better way. The turning point arrived with a new initiative she had been quietly developing, meticulously crafting in the late hours after her reform efforts consumed her days: the Redridge Regional Safety and Land Stewardship Cooperative. It was more than a new policy. It was an innovative model, a radical vision designed to replace the opaque, contractor-driven security system that had bred corruption. This cooperative was a direct-to-stakeholder system, a revolutionary concept for the county, designed to empower the community directly. Instead of external security firms holding the contracts and wielding unchecked power, the cooperative would be jointly owned and operated by participating landowners, from the smallest family farms to the largest ranches, and the county government itself. Security personnel would no longer be hired by a private, profit-driven entity. Instead, they would be hired directly by the cooperative, rigorously trained not just in law enforcement, but in community policing, land management, and agricultural best practices. Their focus would shift fundamentally, from mere enforcement and intimidation to proactive stewardship, protecting land, crops, livestock, and people, with transparency and accountability built into its very structure from the ground up. This meant officers would understand the cycles of agriculture, the needs of the ranchers, the specific challenges of land preservation. The cooperative would also serve as a hub for shared resources, from specialized drone surveillance equipment for monitoring vast acreages, to environmental monitoring programs, to shared heavy machinery for emergency situations. This was Claire's secret innovation, a radical departure from how things had always been done in Redridge County, a direct challenge to the very foundation of the old power structure. It isolated her initially, as many doubted its feasibility, fearing it was too complex, too idealistic, too disruptive to the traditional order. But it was her definitive answer to the systemic failures, a way to empower the community while ensuring genuine security, fostering a collective responsibility for their shared landscape. This was her bold stroke, an attempt to transform a hierarchical system into a communal one. The first pilot program for the Redridge Regional Safety and Land Stewardship Cooperative launched in a smaller, but strategically important, sector of the county, an area primarily composed of medium-sized family farms, historically vulnerable to petty crime and the predations of the old security firm. Claire poured her heart and soul into it, rallying the participating ranchers, explaining the nuances of the new model in countless town hall meetings, patiently addressing every skepticism and concern. She personally oversaw the rigorous training of the new steward officers, ensuring they were imbued with the cooperative's core values of service, respect, and deep knowledge of the land. As she descended the final steps, her mission accomplished, a small, somber group emerged from a side entrance. Among them, flanked by correctional officers, was Ray Collins. He was in a standard-issue orange jumpsuit, his hands cuffed, his once imposing frame appearing shrunken, almost fragile, his face pale and etched with despair, the life seemingly drained from his eyes. He was being transported to a state prison, far from Redridge, his final journey in the county he once terrorized. Their eyes met across the paved square, a vast expanse of concrete separating two radically altered destinies. The moment stretched, thick with unspoken history, a silent testament to the seismic shift that had occurred. Ray flinched, his gaze falling, unable to meet hers, the shame and defeat overwhelming him. There was no anger in Claire's eyes, no triumphal smirk, no satisfaction in his brokenness. Only a calm, resolute power, a quiet understanding of the justice that had been served. He had slapped her, humiliated her, tried to break her, but she had rebuilt the very system he had corrupted, using his own tyranny as the catalyst for its transformation, leaving him with nothing. He mumbled something, a pathetic, almost inaudible sound, his voice hoarse from disuse, a ghost of his former bluster. "Maddox, I didn't know." Claire took a step closer, closing the distance between them. Her voice, though soft, carried the full weight of everything she had endured and achieved, every silent battle won. "No, Mr. Collins," she said, her voice clear in the crisp air, resonating with an unyielding judgment. "You didn't. You saw what you wanted to see. A common girl, an easy target, a nameless face to assert your twisted authority over. But I saw you for what you truly were. A man who traded trust for fear, who wielded a uniform as a weapon, and who mistook authority for tyranny." She paused, allowing her words to sink in, to fully crush him. The Redridge Regional Safety and Land Stewardship Cooperative now protects every acre of this county, every person, with integrity and dignity. Its budget, Mr. Collins, is 10 times what your entire security firm ever dreamed of, secured through transparent means and community investment. And it's built on transparency, respect, and community partnership. The contracts you so meticulously controlled, the power you so arrogantly wielded, are now held by the very people you abused, the farmers and ranchers who now govern their own security. She didn't need to shout. She didn't need to physically retaliate. The sheer, overwhelming systemic and financial power of the new order she had forged, a monument to his utter, irreversible defeat, stood before him unassailable. He looked at her, at the symbol of everything he had lost, at the living embodiment of the new Redridge County, and the true cost of his arrogance finally, irrevocably, crushed him. His head bowed, he was led away, a broken echo of the man who thought he could slap a nobody into submission. Claire watched him go, then turned, her gaze sweeping across the vibrant, hopeful landscape of Redridge County, a landscape transformed by her unwavering will, a testament to the quiet power of a woman wronged, now a master of the system. And so, their destiny was forged in the crucible of injustice, a new legacy built from the ashes of the old. Claire Maddox's story now belongs to time, a testament to resilience, but its power only grows if shared. True authority is earned through integrity, not taken by force. Yet, as one man breaks the system, another is trapped by it, leaving us to wonder, how many silent battles are fought every day, unseen, in the quiet corners of our world? If this journey marked your soul, if it ignited a spark of defiance within you, then leave a like and subscribe to unravel more tales of hidden power and triumphant spirit. For the best stories are those that refuse to die in silence.